Actually,
I'm
it
not doing
always
it.
make you laugh all the time.
I'm not doing it this time. Just not going to do
You
it.
are laughing, Michael. I saw you laughing.
Are we live?
We are live, Michael. Let's go.
Awesome. Martin, welcome back to E-commerce Undercover. You know who we have back with us today?
Yeah, we have very amazing guests.
We have Morten.
Yeah, we have Morten also with two of his friends.
Two of his friends.
Yeah.
I wonder who his friends are. You know, Morten's episode was so good that we had to have him come back.
Exactly.
Yeah, we had to have him come back. So you want to just go to his friends?
Yeah, definitely. So
let's start with Jasmin.
Let's start with Jasmin.
Jasmin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, pleasure. Thanks, guys, for having us. And yeah, I mean, you know, Morten does have friends. Surprising, but it's true.
Probably many friends.
Yeah, and my name's Jasmin. I'm the Senior Director for Global Partner Marketing at Contentstack. But more importantly, I'm the chair of the Marketing Council at the MACH Alliance. And that's how I got to meet Morten. And we'll get to that in a second. But, you know, the MACH Alliance really is our playground where friends meet to really propel an industry standard and really make it fun while doing it. It's, you know, so much better if you can come together with friends and put all your day job things aside and just do what makes you thrive.
Absolutely.
And what does good for every one of us. So really happy to be here and talk with Morten and all of the other friends that are involved.
It's awesome to have you here. Dom, do you want to go?
Oh yeah, thank you. You know, I mean, really pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Morten, for counting me amongst your friends. It's your warm side. I'm Dom Selvon. I'm CTO at E2X, a niche boutique consultancy based out of London. But as Jasmin says, more importantly, I spend quite a bit of my time on the MACH Alliance, really focused around the tech side of things. So there's a variety of different councils on the MACH Alliance, which we'll describe later on. But the Tech Council, you know, is the in my opinion, the core of the MACH Alliance. Everything's tech in the MACH Alliance.
We'll need to have a discussion about that later on.
Exactly.
I got that in.
We'll get back to you when the cameras and the mics go off.
But at least we can say that you seem to have fun into the MACH Alliance. That's perfect.
That is.
You seem that you have a lot of fun. That's great.
I like the energy.
That's cool. Definitely.
So, Jasmin, why don't you tell us why and how this thing was founded? You've already mentioned a little bit about what it is, maybe a little bit more detail on what it is and then why it is as well.
Sure. And you see here, more fun. How did it all start? It all started in a pub. True, really, not making it up. A bunch of people of companies, of course, got together in a pub and said, guess what? Let's put our company roles and demeanors aside, right, and let's have a conversation about what we need to do to make MACH a commonly known term, something that companies can refer to when they are trying to move to a composable architecture. Because let's be honest, if you hear MACH, what do you think of first?
Speed.
See, and that is related to what it is that the MACH Alliance does, but many people still think airplanes,
Mach 1, Mach 2.
travel.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, you know, very few people think of microservices, API first, cloud native, and headless.
But they will now.
And guess what? We've, you know, in the 18 months really that the MACH Alliance has been here, founded in June 2020, so it's really still a young startup type thing. We've gone so far in making MACH a more commonly known term and helping companies understand why and how to make that move to composable architectures, what it can do for them, and you know why it makes sense and under what conditions it makes sense. So really, the MACH Alliance is about helping businesses understand what the benefits are, and not just what the benefits are, but how you can actually get it done. And that's where Dom and the Tech Council come in, because of course it is a very tech-heavy conversation, but we feel like you can only have a good conversation if you really understand the process as a whole. So back then in London, in the pub, 5 people got together and said, guess what, let's come together. Let's not talk about weird Contentstack believe this, we at Valtech believe that, we at Commerce Tools think in a different way about it. Let's come together, put it aside and say, hey, we as the MACH Alliance are here to advocate the industry and create a standard and become the neutral institution that helps you understand and select vendors once you've decided you want to go on that journey.
So I don't think there can be a shift in a paradigm unless some other things that underline paradigm shift, right? This whole idea of microservices, API first, cloud native, and headless, all of these things just on their own are actually really interesting to me. I wish we had like 5 hours. Maybe we'll do another episode already. I'm already thinking. Because
we could do one on every letter.
We could do. But let's introduce this as a thing. And what I want to know, and I always ask this to people, particularly on the tech side, like, what changed, right? In other words, you're getting together. It probably wasn't the first time you got together, but what changed do you think? And maybe, Tom, you can answer this, where everyone came together and said, there's definitely a paradigm shift going on. But to standardize that paradigm shift, we have to think about it in this way. Like, was it the compute power that changed? Was it the cloud stuff that had changed? Was it the throughput that it or was it all these things coming together? What was the impetus really?
Yeah, I think the change is manifold. I think I've made a joke earlier that it's all tech driven, and a lot of this is tech driven. You know, the advent of AWS with very cheap compute power,
yep.
with you know, Azure and Google trying to follow suit, being able to take advantage of all that compute power. But in terms that the business understands is where that paradigm shift happened. I think, you know, making so you don't have the risk associated with owning your own tin is something that's really compelling to many businesses. You know, many businesses outside of, you know, the Walmarts or the Amazons or you know, the really, really big players in this world don't want to have a tech team who know the deep understandings of how all these intricate bits of software work together. They want to, you know, do their core business, and their core business may be selling t-shirts online. It may be, you know, selling tickets or doing other things that require some sort of transactional or compute power behind the scenes. And the challenge that we saw before the MACH Alliance came along was that the language and the tech behind it was complex and hard to scale and to be resilient and so on and so forth. So being able to start to articulate those concepts in a language that the business understood meant that it just, you know, exploded in growth. It's got so much more accessible to variety of different, you know, verticals and what have you that wouldn't necessarily go into that level of high scale, internet scale technology because it was too scary. It's too you know, cumbersome upon their tech teams to be able to do that. So now we can actually do that in terms of MACH, and the language that's being used is more accessible for the business. And that's what we're trying to achieve, making it so that the business understands the technology behind these really, you know, tech focused terms like microservices, you know, API first. You know, your CFO is not going to care about what they mean.
No.
He's going to care about what they get.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. So I think this is very, very interesting, this idea of like just changing the world, just to explain it like another way, maybe a more simple way, just to be able like to touch a much larger and much broader audience, right? Kind like this idea of democratizing something that's hard and then making it valuable to the general public. So it just raises one question into my mind: why doing that? What's the goal of the MACH Alliance? What's the vision behind that?
And see, that's a really good one, because it may sound naive, but actually the goal of the MACH Alliance is that we won't need to be here in 5 years. Right? If we do our job right, what will happen is everyone will know what we're talking about. Everyone will know what the benefits are. We won't have to talk about it anymore. If we accomplish that, we've accomplished what we are set out to.
Right.
And it's a super high level goal. And it is, again, it may be idealistic, but that's exactly why it is such a pleasure to work with such a large group of super smart people, because everyone is coming together for the greater good. And I know that sounds cheesy,
not really,
but it actually is true. It is.
Yeah. Let's get the flip side of this, if that's okay. And Morten, maybe you can jump in here, right? You're a member of the MACH Alliance. It wasn't a given that Bluestone was going to be part of the MACH Alliance. Like, how did you even know this thing existed? Because I wouldn't have known unless one of my friends introduced me to you to be on the show. And when he said that, I was like, sure, okay, we'll talk to Morten because it sounds interesting. The PIM stuff is fascinating, right? And you brought up the Mac stuff. So how did you find it, and why did you join?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a funny story actually, because it was actually our CEO. I think he was bored at a Christmas party or something.
So it starts in a bar, goes to a Christmas party.
Yeah, something like that. And he sent me a chat during Christmas, like last Christmas. And he was like, I think it was something that he's found on LinkedIn or something, like an article.
Okay.
And he just sent me a chat, and I was bored at my Christmas party. So I was like, yeah, what is this? And we had definitely felt the pain. We talked a little bit about this last time too, that the problem with people or our clients not understanding exactly what we were talking about and how we were different.
Right.
That was a challenge for us. We talked about how our everyone has APIs, but ours taste better, or,
right.
And we have a lot of them, and they are really different. And we had definitely problems with getting that message across to our clients. Now back to the Christmas party, I read the article, and I was like, you know what, this is just spot on. This is just, what I have to dive into this. Found the website, read through everything and found the application, and I just filled it out. And at the same time, I sent the message to our the chairman of the board in Bluestone, and he read this, and he actually thought that the web page of the MACH Alliance was something that we had made, because the message was so spot on.
Right.
So he was like, "Where
have I heard that before?
This is fantastic. What have we done?" And I'm like, no, this is something we've made. We want to be a part of this. And so that's where it that's where we came from, and that's how we got involved. And then after a process of becoming a member and applying, we got approved, and that's also something that we should probably talk about. I don't know if it's now or later, because
go for it.
It's not
it's not a given that everybody gets in, right? Like I can't apply.
Right. It's kind of an exclusive club. We'll see you, Michael.
No, my services aren't micro enough. It's just not.
Yeah.
You're not headless enough.
I was thinking before we started recording, brainless maybe is better, but headless, no.
Oh, exactly. Maybe Dom, you want to explain a little bit more about this? How what our standards are, and kind of what we're all about there, because it's not everyone that
No, you're right.
that are approved. Yeah.
Everyone, and it's quite humbling. Everyone does want to be part of the club, and everybody recognises. They probably read the articles in their maybe less boring Christmas parties. I don't know, but the idea that there's this group of like-minded businesses that are all coming together to try and speak the same language is actually quite humbling, and people actually wanted to be. We're inundated with applications at the moment, and we do apply a very, very rigorous evaluation approach to it, and it goes through a variety of different stages to make the cut, so to speak. So there is, as we talked about earlier, a couple of different councils that we have as part of the MACH Alliance. We've got the Growth Council, which is charged with growing the alliance and getting the word out there. Jasmin can talk about that much more eloquently than I can. And then there's the Tech Council, which I co-chair with someone from EPAM called Roberto. And we look at the technical elements of the applicants. We look at how they adhere to the acronym, the microservices, API first, cloud native, headless, and so on. But then we also apply a couple of other elements that give us a much more insight into how the software is built and how the philosophy of the people involved in building the products aligns to the MACH philosophy as well. And because ultimately we all want to have that same language. We all want to try and figure out and articulate what that language looks like in the world out there, in the composable world. So going through the selection criteria, going through the evaluation is something that we're passionate about. We actually love having the conversations with these vendors, but we also want to make sure that we're fair across the board as well, and that people who don't quite meet all the criteria are given constructive feedback, because we believe that the MACH way of delivering software is a very, very good and scalable way of doing it. So we'll give feedback to them, and many people reapply, and we've had a couple reapply and then get in because of the changes that have been made based on the requirements.
That's interesting. I want to ask you this. I want to get to Jasmin in a second about some of the benefits for the community and the points that you just made. But I want to hear from a technologist about the difference between migrating services to the cloud and being cloud native. I want to be very clear about this. Just how it's different to build something for the cloud or just move something that was, sitting on a server somewhere into the cloud.
Yeah.
So go on, Morten.
No, we talked about this last time.
We touched about this last time, but I wanted Dom to give me his opinion as well.
And so this is what I call geography. If you moved your servers to the cloud, that's a very different story than if you've if you built it from the ground up in the cloud. So that's my point of view there. And Dom, you have your.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of individuals within the MACH Alliance who have a much more passionate view about cloud native versus cloud migrated. I think the cloud native approach, the cloud, it's quite a ephemeral term, literally and figuratively. There's a lot of diversity within how you actually can deploy and build software in the cloud, but the software that's been built recently, the sort of transition to potentially towards a no-code or a low-code future for combining software and composing software is much easier to provision and to grow the software, rather than in the past where you've had a monolithic application that has very, very stringent or very complex deployment and management and operational elements to the software. That putting that in the cloud, so to speak, is not trivial. And provisioning software means if this one of the questions that we often ask when we're doing the tech evaluations is, how do you provision a new client onto your platform? If it's something that says, okay, fill in a form, go to the vendor's ops team, you'll get an instance in a couple of days' time. We kind of say, oh, that triggers an alarm bell. That's not what cloud native is. Cloud native is push a button. You've got a fully functional, fully
you're done.
Fully working instance. You're done. That's kind of cloud native. So cloud native is not you're using serverless or this. That's not cloud native. Cloud native is a philosophy and the ability to do things fast in an internet scale fashion. Be able to scale based on the number of people using the software and on a whim as well. So not something that you have to plan and prepare for. Something that happens automatically.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Just to comment on that.
Go ahead.
It's all about future proofing too, right? It's that's utilizing the power of the cloud. Being cloud native means that you're in a position to utilize the power of the cloud. Everything new that comes along, you can utilize that easily compared to a monolithical approach. So that's also future proofing is a key word there.
Got it.
Yeah, transparency is important as well. So you're not aware of what happens behind the scenes, but because it's built and architected in such a way that you get benefit of it if you want to take it, that benefit.
Yeah, that's very super interesting, and it raised a question in my mind, which is, what if I am a member and I have a question? And I would like, some other members, like for example, you, Dom, who say like, I'm not quite sure about how I can do that, with my software. Do you also do some kind of I don't know, like let's say mentoring or consulting within the alliance, like to help maybe the companies that are here to maybe like do something new or just expand somewhere?
Martin has questions, clearly.
Martin, that's a very good question, and it is so. To our points earlier on, it's really great to have egos and business logos checked at the door when we start to go into the MACH Alliance context. But that doesn't mean that they have to disappear completely. So we are still new. We are still sort of finding our feet in how we operate with each other. So there is some subtleties and nuances there. So, for example, competitors can't evaluate each other because there's a conflict of interest naturally in that. So we're trying to figure out, what that means in terms of evaluations and growth. We are coming up with genericized or anonymized patterns and blueprints for a composable architectures. So coming up with, how do you deploy these bits of software together in a scalable fashion? How do you operate in a containerized world, and so on and so forth? Okay. When we're in the tech council, when we have their Slack channels and things like that, people can raise questions and people will immediately jump on it. We all love talking this tech. We all love just shooting the breeze and figuring out what's the best way of doing something this way, what's the best way of doing something that way. So in that respect, there is no ego, and it's quite fun to just chat and amongst each other. So there's nothing on that front.
Do you think that this, and I may have the terminology wrong, but do you think this grows into like, excuse me, like a mini GitHub place where there's code that gets written? Someone just has they just wrote some amazing code, which is applicable to something that somebody else is doing. And you just have this repository where people can go, here's that thing, but it's so specific to Mac. So you don't want it to sit on GitHub. You want it to sit on, Mac Hub or whatever that is, right? I just made up a name. Feel free to trademark that.
And I hate to say it, but we already have a place.
So the answer to that is yes, and you're so slow, Michael.
And so I will just add one thing to what you just said, because you talked about the code, but what about also the knowledge and the learnings? Like I'm thinking about students at school, for example, who would love to learn how to create their software the Mac way. They learn about the MACH Alliance. They love all of your companies. They cannot join because they didn't build themselves yet, right? But they want to learn. I think they would be super interested into learning how you do and just outside of the MACH Alliance as well.
Sorry, Jasmin, go ahead.
No. And I'm just dying to
go.
get into it. And there's two things we need to be talking about. One is our community portal, and it's not as fancy as GitHub per naming, but that's exactly. So that's exactly where all of the conversations, not just around code, but also around sales enablement and answering questions that come up repeatedly, and they come up for all of us, unrelated to which company we work for. Clients tend to have a similar set of questions, and what we try is have a library of best practices for all of the members to look at and do it in an anonymized fashion, of course, but accessible to all the members, so we can actually have better answers to the most frequent questions out there, and actually provide examples of how those challenges can be solved. That's actually a great place to go. Is it open for students? Not yet, but where the students come in, and actually everyone that is interested in the space, is during our Macathons. What is a Macathon? It's a hackathon on MACH technology. So what happens is our members give free access to their tools and their software, and you can sign up for these events and you can just start hacking away. And we did one that was a week long in January. We did one that was 4 weeks long in August/September. And we saw amazing work come out of there.
Yeah.
And it is totally open to everyone. Everyone is free to sign up, and then just get cracking and get help, because what Dom mentioned are the Slack channels. So we have a support Slack channel where you can get instant answers to your questions. And every once in a while, someone just jumps on a shared call and just starts hacking away with you. And that happens across across all members, right? No one says, yeah, but I know I can't help you because it's a question about this one piece. You just get in as the expert and you try to find the best solution.
So when is the next Macathon?
Well, watch out for it. We haven't set the date yet, but it is going to be the beginning of next year. So it's been such a huge.
I would be there.
It's awesome, and the more the merrier, because the more great minds get together, the cooler the solutions are that we can actually look at. And if you looked at the winning entries from this last Macathon, holy cow, it's just amazing what people come up with in such a short amount of time, which is actually then again a best practice example about what you can do with the freedom that a composable architecture gives you.
And how did you do this last Macathon? It wasn't in person, right? Was it virtual?
Well, actually, this is one that is probably going to stay virtual because it's global. So we have teams from India, Australia, and that poses a whole new set of challenges in terms of logistics and organizing it. But what we have just resorted to do is we have live sessions in the morning and in the evening, European time, because that allows many people to watch it live, but then we also record it and make it accessible. So, if the time doesn't work for you, for good reasons, you're always free to just come in at whichever time suits your schedule and still be part of the party. What we will do next year is and I'm giving you secret information now.
We won't tell anybody.
We are not going to share the recording of the episode.
Keep going.
So what we're looking to do for the next Macathon is we'll tie it into and here's another piece of secret information. We do want to move into the real physical event things next year again. Right. So we'll try and find a format where all of your hacking is of course going to be virtual, but we will try and have it culminate in an awards ceremony that will be in person. So even better and more fun stuff coming up, but we'll make sure that everyone is able to participate virtually. And then we'll try and attach at the very end, a thing to look forward to. If that
what we do, Jasmin, is try and culminate it into Morten's Christmas party.
Yeah, so it's not so boring this year.
and yours and the CEOs and whoever is bored. Yeah,
I'm starting to hope that my family doesn't see this now. So don't worry, they won't. So
they're not in the MACH Alliance. They don't get the secret code.
They're not approved.
So Jasmin, just as a little bit of a follow-up, like you're doing the sharing of the information, the sharing of the code. If you're doing branding as well, right? And one of the things that I think about a lot is this idea of Intel inside, right? In other words, the AMD chips weren't that different than the Intel chips. It was all on the same architecture. But is there a benefit to the MACH Alliance to actually brand strong and say, like, this software is MACH approved kind of thing, so that people know what they're getting, right? Because then, again, not to put too fine a point on it, but then they'll know. It's microservices, it's API first, right? It's headless, it's cloud native, all this kind of stuff. Is that being done too?
Oh, definitely. And you've just hit the nail on the head, because that's exactly what we're doing and what the biggest benefit of the MACH Alliance is. If you are, and we see that in RFPs, by the way, so it's not just, up high in the clouds aspiration, it is actually a real business value. If you're a member and you can, you can put the badge on your website, you can put it in your documents.
Right.
Actually, that is by now something that is requested in RFPs that we see incoming, because companies are starting to understand that there is a body that certifies real MACH, quote unquote, because there's a lot of companies out there that use the term but are not really MACH, and that's where where the friction starts, because many companies still need more education on what it is, and the member of the MACH Alliance is helping them make choices for vendors.
Well, that's the whole point of branding, right? In other words, I can put a drink on the table and call it a Coke, but if it's not Coca-Cola, like, it's not Coca-Cola. It just doesn't matter. right?
You will know.
And you will definitely
Once you
know.
taste it, you will know.
Yeah, but it's the same thing, right? You can taste the
Yeah.
software as well. And that's why I asked about this branding thing, because I do think it's actually quite important. Yeah.
Just a
It
comment
is,
on
and it's,
that is,
sorry, please,
Go
Morten,
ahead,
go
man.
just a
ahead.
comment on that is that from a member's perspective, that's so important, and we've seen the power of this. It's a totally different ballgame for us now, as you know, we have the stamp of approval, and we use it for, you know, all that it's worth, and we see a huge difference. So that's very important for us. And also the MACH Alliance is, I guess for the members, it's also what you put into it. If you if you put more into it, you get more out. That's at least my take back from having been a member for what is it, 6, 7, 8 months? Yeah.
May I ask you, when you say it brings you like a lot of benefits, do you mean like on the customer acquisition or customer relationship side, or also internally within your company? Maybe now your tech people can relate with more tech people, let's say, outside of the company as well, and maybe understand like a bigger vision about what you are building. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good question, and
Exactly
it's
what I was going to ask. Go ahead.
yeah, great minds think alike, right? So you have it's two parts to that. Like externally, that's where we felt it first. Like that's where it's all happening now externally.
Okay.
And that's where we see a huge difference. But also now we want to move towards making a difference internally. So we want to we haven't had or been a part of the Macathon, like our development teams. We have a lot of development teams in Bluestone, and we have not been a part actively yet, and we want to do that. So we're definitely moving towards that from the internal perspective. Yeah.
That's super cool, and it just brings me an idea. Like I'm thinking about all of these startups who are building their software on their own, maybe in their bedroom, by themselves. Oh, all of these founders,
Dom's shaking his head. He's like, they're just going to have to rewrite this stuff.
Why reinvent? The advice that I tend to give I do a lot of consultancy right at the beginning of a change process in my role. And one of the advice I give is if it's commoditizable, don't build it.
Yeah.
People with bigger brains than us have built it and have done a very, very good job, and it's generic enough to suit anybody's needs. So if you're putting stuff on a page to render a product, putting that into a basket and then checking it out, don't rewrite that. It's commoditized now. It's no longer magic. If there's something that's unique to you, then build that. And that could be your USP, but try and isolate those elements of the business to very, very small, contained pieces of software. Your content can be commoditized. Your commerce can be commoditized. Your product information management can be commoditized. Your order management can be commoditized because there's very well understood patterns and software to do that. Anything that's unique, you can build yourself.
Is there a startup angle to this? I mean, it would be really, and maybe there already is, right? Maybe we're already just kind of rehashing all of your old ideas, but if you could encourage startup businesses literally right from the beginning, as opposed to kind of hacking code in their basement, like Morten was saying, but just starting with this in mind. In other words, from the beginning, build it like this. And even what you just said, Tom, right? Like, why reinvent the wheel for a bunch of different things that you're doing? Take these components that have already been built and build your USP, but build it using the MACH philosophy to do it, because then it'll make using those other components so much easier and so much more efficient, right?
Yeah, there's two types of business. Well, there's many types of business. There's two types of business in this context. There's those that are very well established. They have software out there that does a good job for them, but they want to be a bit more flexible in the future. And then there's the new starting businesses. So Kazoo is a good example of this, where they've started from scratch and built, in a MACH way right from the beginning, and their ability to be flexible is not constrained by any sort of software that's been built in the past. Whereas someone who's trying to make a transition to a more Mac architecture needs to think long and hard about that transition process. They can't do it big bang, because that's going to really, really mess in their revenue streams. It's going to have a really, really high impact in their software development costs and so on. So they have to pick it off piecemeal, something that we've called the strangler fig pattern, where you start to isolate small areas, small domains of the software, figure out what the best of breed Mac software is out there. Say if you want to just redo your content, you go and choose, Contentstack or something like that, and just focus on that element of the architecture, slowly strangling away what was there previously in favor of this new software, and then go on to the next bit. That could be your shopping cart, for example. Then you slowly start to strangle that way. Over time, you've got a kind of Theseus approach, where you've replaced your old, inflexible, hard to scale, high operational overhead software with this, very, very flexible, agile, lovely new Macified architecture.
So I look at a lot of things from an investment standpoint. If you're doing Macathons, Morten's going to laugh at me for this, but if you're doing Macathons, right, and you're getting some of these early companies, right, and I like this sort of dichotomy approach. You either have existing going concerns or new companies. You can put those new companies in any category you want. Fair enough, right? I look at it from a startup perspective, just because that's what I do every day. But there are SMEs and other businesses that are just being built that don't fall into a tech startup category, right? But if you're getting people to come in for a Macathon and you're teaching people how to build in a Mac way, you're going to see things before other people see them. Is there a way to raise money around that and then invest that money into some of the best things that you see? So run like the Mac Fund?
Now, Jasmin, are you going to get in there first, or shall I? I'll let you go first. You go.
That's the goal.
Oh no, and see, it just makes my heart sing, because actually that's what happened at our first Macathon.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
I'm going to leave now.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome.
But it's and that's the beauty of it, right? We had a fantastic winner at the first Macathon. It was a food bank project, so it actually had a very much of a purpose. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it got funded after the Macathon. And
But
course,
did you fund it, or
no? And
external.
It was external, exactly, because we were too young and too small, and we weren't mature enough yet to think about that. We were willing, but we weren't able.
Right.
And the more we're progressing, the more we are aiming to get into that space as well. So definitely, I mean, if you're sitting at the source, it will be
that's the point, though,
stupid
right?
not
You
to.
have inside information that nobody else can have.
But I think we want to maintain a certain level of authenticity.
I understand.
And sort of stepping back from some of those elements. The MACH Alliance was never, incepted to become a marketing medium or a sales medium or anything like that. It was all about knowledge transfer and knowledge growth off the back of that. The networking, is kind of a very, very happy side effect that's happened off the back of that. But ultimately, as Jasmin says, obsolescence is kind of where we want to go, but not obsolescence in that the terms have disappeared. It's that the term is so prevalent that we're no longer required as an alliance to put it forward. We're required as an arbiter of what is Mac.
Right. Right. I mean,
that's kind of where we want to put ourselves.
When the alliance becomes redundant, it becomes unnecessary, right? Because everybody's already doing it. Sorry, Jasmin, go ahead.
No, we really do see ourselves as the facilitator. So we are the one that makes the connections. We're connecting the dots, right? And that makes us thrive and that makes us happy. So, when the funding happened, we were not sorry that we did it ourselves. We were just so happy that that happened. So, it really is about connecting the dots for the MACH Alliance.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's a joy in just having great stuff happen, right?
Yeah.
Regardless. Are there different categorizations of people, like members, ambassadors? What's the difference there?
John, do you want to go, or?
There's a few different flavors of members in the MACH Alliance. I can talk about the sort of technical flavors, and I think Jasmin, then you can talk about the ambassador and member difference. In terms of the companies that are joining the MACH Alliance, we've got product companies, Contentstack, Commerce Tools, Bluestone. We've got systems integrators, the companies that plumb them all together for clients, and we've got a concept called an enabler, and that's kind of a piece of software that's not functionally fitting an element of an architecture. It's not something that works on, putting something to a basket. It's not something that works on capturing payments or anything like that. It's there to plumb things together and to enable cloud native software to be built. So there's the kind of the three technical members.
Understood. Jasmin?
Yeah, and then there's three different things that we're talking about. You can become a member. What you need to be is 100% MACH, right? You can't just have that one-off service or product or offering that is MACH and then sort of use that as your ticket into the MACH Alliance. That won't work. Sorry, guys, for the record. But so you can be a regular member, or if you're not a company but a person, so you may want to think about that, you can apply to become an ambassador. And ambassadors are proven experts in the transition from monolithic to MACH. So if you've successfully completed that journey, we love to have you as an expert, giving advice to companies, and both on the integrator side, but also on the vendor side and on the client side. Most importantly, one of my happiest moments was when a company approached us and said, "Hey, we are thinking about moving to MACH. Can you please connect us with an expert that can give us advice on how to do that?"
Right.
You knew exactly.
That's exactly what we want, right? And that's where the ambassadors come in, because we're neutral, period. We're not going to send you any one of the members unless you specifically request that, because we're not a sales organization, right? We just want to enable you to have the best transition as a result of that, the best new tech stack that you can have.
Right.
And then there's the enabler category, when when you are rendering services that are needed to help with the MACH transition, but you're not really into the tech. Tangible example, if you're a design agency, which will inevitably be needed along the way, and you want to be a part of the journey, that's when you can come in as an enabler. But that's exactly why we're making that differentiation. You're not going to be a member if you're a design agency, because you don't have to do anything with MACH itself.
Right.
But you will be needed in the process. So that's where the enabler comes in. So that's really the three things. You're either a member, you're an ambassador, or you can be an enabler.
Were you going to say something?
No.
Do you go out and actually look for new members as well? In other words, if there's a technical gap that you're trying to fill, or you're trying to find people to come in, do you say to yourselves as a team, we'd like to have that team in here, and then go out and not recruit them, but just let them know that it's out there and try to get them to join? Maybe Dom, you can take that.
Yeah, that's actually the responsibility of the Growth Council, but actually we found we've not needed to. It's the word of mouth and the speed by which this sort of concept has grown has meant we've been inundated with applicants. Applicants which are slam dunk entries, really good piece of software, and some of the bigger players as well who have a portfolio of software that some meets the criteria, some don't, and there's very good reasons why we don't allow companies that have a portfolio of software of which some doesn't allow them, and it goes into some detail, but maybe not for this section as to exactly why that is the case. But we also do target some areas as well. So we don't want the MACH Alliance to be a vehicle for one particular vendor, for example, or for one particular systems integrator, for example. So we actively go to have a balance of representation from particular domains. So whether that's content, whether that's commerce, whether that's product or order or whatever, we try to have a balance. So if we see that we're getting a fewer in a particular domain, we will actively go out and try and target companies that we think fit the bill, obviously, and encourage them to look, this is going to be good for you in the long run.
And and this is for anybody really, but are you surprised by the speed with which this is growing without going out and actively recruiting people? It must mean that there is this sort of secular change taking place, and that people want a place to meet, to talk about it, and to create standards. Is that fair?
Incredible.
That is absolutely fair. And you know what, we are totally transparent about that. It started out with 5, in June 2020. And the goal was, if we can make it to maybe 12 to 15 by the end of the year, you know, we would have called it a success. And guess what? We were at 35, and we're about to issue the next press release with the next set of new members, and that will take us to probably 50 plus by the end of the year. So, you know, we've been nothing but amazed at the trajectory, and what it tells us is that we're doing something that matters.
Right. And that's kind of super cool. And that's why I asked that question, right? Because you know you're doing something that matters if everybody wants to be invited to that party.
And Forrester called us the coolest tech club in town, and that was unsolicited. We didn't pay for it or anything.
We didn't ask.
No, we're actually going to print T-shirt that say "Coolest Tech in Town Club," right?
Where can I get my T-shirt?
It's really just, yeah. Sorry, Morten, go ahead.
No. Sorry. You can finish your thought. Sorry for interrupting you.
All good. Point made. But that was really cool, and you know, it filled everyone with so much pride when we saw that Forrester article out there that awarded us with that tag.
It's validating, right? It's just really nice.
Yeah, it is
really
absolutely.
Nice.
Me too. I'm also amazed by the speed that this has gone forward now, and you know, Dom and I are on the tech council, and we're approving. I think the backlog itself says it all, right, Dom?
Yeah.
It's been crazy this especially this fall. So we're definitely onto something here, and something
feels like it.
And keep in mind that everyone is doing it in their spare time, if there is such a thing, right? We all have a day job that is pretty demanding, but it's so much fun that, you know, you make the time. You don't find it, you make it.
Yeah.
And a comment on that is that I feel there is a huge difference. I've been trying to reach out to technology partners and all sorts of for years now, and I found it very hard, being, you know, a pretty new company and up and coming, I guess. But that all changed with the Mac approval stamp. Now I say that first, you know, that we are Mac approved, and then or certified, and then you know, we get all the attention we want fairly soon. So and also on Slack has been fantastic, you know, where we can reach out to all the other members and actually get an answer. Where it's, you know, your mailbox, everyone's mailbox is just crazy. You don't you don't respond there, but actually reaching out on Slack to the right people and getting an answer within hours is just amazing.
Yeah, these communities really matter, and I love the fact that the branding's working. Right. In other words, this didn't exist in June of 2020, or let's just say May 31st, it just didn't exist. It's just like 5 people in a pub trying to figure something out. And now what Morten is saying, that he can actually go to clients or potential clients and say, you know, hi, this is Morten Naess from Bluestone. We're part of the MACH Alliance, and they don't hang up, right?
Exactly.
They just start listening.
They just start listening immediately.
But that's actually kind of cool.
It's a game changer for us.
Yeah, that's actually kind of cool.
So humbling in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
What's been achieved. I think you know, you talked to some of the early members, the original 5, and some of the earlier members, E2X as well. The doors that it's opened off the back of it. E2X has been going for 20 odd years, but we've never had this level of exposure that we've had since being part of the MACH Alliance.
Right.
It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
The sort of authenticity and the sort of consolidation of your experience that it kind of puts on top of you. Even though you've not changed your experience, it just seems to be a rubber stamp that makes it so you are much more, more established, and it's humbling. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, this falls into my category of everyone's an overnight success 10 years later, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It really does, though. I say this all the time. You're right. Like you've all been working for years, and you've obviously had clients and been appreciated and stuff like that. But now that's blowing up into something a lot bigger. And to be fair, you couldn't do this without those 20 years of experience, because in a way you almost wouldn't have been qualified, right? Even if you wanted to, and you wouldn't have had the gravitas to do it. And now you do. It's just nice to see it happen, I think. The branding something.
It's the vehicle upon which we can actually put our thoughts forwards, and to be able to put it on the foundation, to be able to put it on top of. Morten and Bluestone, they're he says he's a small company, but what he's doing in the business, what Bluestone are doing in that particular domain, is far and away, I think, some of the best tech that I've seen. It was a very easy evaluation when we were looking at the Bluestone PIM to get in there, but I think without having that MACH stamp, and I think he would have found it harder to go to market and to take on some of the bigger players. Whereas now it's on a level playing field, a much more level playing field.
I love it.
Excellent.
So we talked at the beginning really about how you want to create this natural obsolescence. But I mean, before you are obsolete, like, where is it going? Like, where is it heading? And what do you think is going to change? Like, I always ask in my InsurTech podcast, like, what's the biggest trend in InsurTech in Asia? What do you think is going to be a new trend that's going to come in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I think low code and no code will take much more precedence in the software. AI and machine learning and all those sort of things are still high up there in the zeitgeist in terms of offering extra newer, more complex functionality in there. But I think to the obsolete or planned obsolete concept there, I think actually rather than making ourselves obsolete, we actually want to establish a set of standards that will dictate and articulate what it means to be Mac, and what it and enables the composition of software in particular verticals as well. So making sure that the software, whilst has their own, my API tastes better than your API, and that's absolutely fine. But as long as it speaks in the language that talks to other Mac approved software, that's if once we get to that stage, I feel my job is done, and I think we've achieved what we wanted to achieve, where there's a standard across the board in plumbing these things together, because that's where the hardest bit is. These softwares are very, very, very quick and very, very easy to stand up. Right. The Macathons proved that. Putting them together and plumbing them together to talk to each other, that's where the complexity lies, and that's kind of hidden in a lot of these the sales pitches for the individual companies. So making it that easier, making that more transparent for the client, that I think if we can do that, then we've achieved exactly what we want to achieve, and I'll be happy to become redundant.
Well, and let's be clear, for the record, the redundancy is 5+ years.
Oh, gosh,
so
yeah.
And there's still so much to do.
Yeah.
It starts with certification. We do think along terms of certifying developers, certifying companies, keeping checking in on what actually makes you a certified MACH member, and using that, propelling that to the next level. Maybe also, think about it in HR terms, because if you are a MACH Alliance member, that may make it easier for you to attract the talent that you will need going forward to stay on top of the developments. And, nobody has a glass ball. We all don't know really for sure what the next big thing is going to be. But if you have the talent that will be up to the challenge once it becomes clearer, will maybe even come up with the next big thing, then you're in a position to succeed. So that is something to be kept in mind. It's hard to track and it's hard to put a KPI on it, but we're definitely seeing that matters as well. So we are definitely moving into certification as one track, education as another. So there may well be an academy type thing in the near future where you can sign up to learn how things are actually being done and being built, and what is the best way to plug them all together so they actually work in the end, right? So we really want to provide a hands-on approach that makes it accessible and really gets us one step closer to it being just a regular way of doing things.
And I think that's super great. This is like all great ideas that I'm sure is gonna be awesome for many people. And there's one thing that I'm very curious about is that when we talk about e-commerce, it's directly related to tech. And we did this whole episode and we didn't even mention a single time e-commerce on our podcast, which is normally called e-commerce undercover, right? Normally we always talk about e-commerce and we didn't even mention the term one time. But
you know what that means?
But yeah, because without tech, there is no e-commerce.
Right.
And when you gather together so many great minds, so many great companies, like, and when you start to talk to each other and like each other and have fun with each other and brainstorm with each other and get your software to talk with each other and all of that stuff, I'm wondering what is going to go out of the MACH Alliance, like what is going to be the new services and what's going to be the next like 5 years or 10 years for the e-commerce industry in terms of services, in terms of products that is going to go out of that. Because once again, like e-commerce without tech doesn't exist at all. And I'm sure you saw many changes over the last 20 years into the e-commerce space. And right now you are gathering together to do something better. So I'm really curious about, maybe is there something that right now you see can be the next big thing for e-commerce? Something that we didn't discuss, but no one knows because they are not tech savvy enough. But you know, and you see that because maybe because you are building that.
Thomas, like, how much time do you have? Is that the teaser for the next episode, Morten?
Maybe that's the closing thoughts.
Maybe that's the closing thought of the teaser for the next episode.
Yeah.
Should we thank everybody?
We can thank everybody.
You were all awesome. And now I think you have to come back, whether you like it or not.
To answer my question.
To
exactly.
answer all of Martin's existing questions that he didn't get to ask on this episode. Really.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Martin. Really, really appreciate you asking us to come on. And we love talking about Mac. We love talking about all this, these concepts. And historically, Mac was a commerce vehicle. A lot of the domains that we brought on board right at the beginning were commerce related. So it is very, very applicable.
Awesome. Dom, Selvon, Jasmin, how do I pronounce your last name? Guthmann.
Yeah, perfect.
And Morten Naess. Thank you all so much for coming on and doing this today. We really appreciate it.